Hey everyone, welcome back to another week of the Dirty O IDP Throwdown. I'm your host, Axton Harding, joined as usual by Jake Colhagen. You can find him on Twitter or X at Late Round DB, and you can find myself at Harding_3. We're here to give you our Week 15 picks. So without further ado, I'll let Jake go ahead and dive into the IDP side. What do you have for us this week?
All right. At the defensive interior, we got Jalen Carter of the Philadelphia Eagles. An impressive 25.7% pass rush win rate, fourth best among all interior defenders, and a very good 12.7 pass rush pressure rate, which for interior defenders is actually quite good. Seattle is back to allowing all kinds of pressures and sacks after having their clean game against Dallas a few weeks back. And Carter's recent sack drought, while producing pressures, leaves him a prime candidate for positive regression. Love Jalen Carter for a sack and more this week. On the edge, we got Tuipulotu of the Los Angeles Chargers. A very, very strong 12.35% pass rush pressure rate for himself, along with 3 pressures per game over the last 3. And then you look at the matchup this week against the Las Vegas Raiders, allowing one of the best sack conversion rates when pressures allowed. Tulu looks like a cinch for a sack game this week against the Raiders. At linebacker, we got TJ Edwards of the Chicago Bears. The last 2 weeks, he's had his second and third worst tackle performances of the entire season, 6 and 4 combined tackles, respectively. However, 7 of his games this season have been 10-plus tackle games, and he gets the Cleveland Browns, who are allowing nearly 19 tackles per game to the linebacker position, a very ideal matchup. I think TJ Edwards bounces back in a big way for us this week. And last, I got defensive back Jalen Thompson of the Arizona Cardinals. Love his utilization since returning from injury over the last 6 weeks. 20-plus box snaps alone, and it's showing just in his tackle efficiency and tackle numbers. 6'5", 3.877 over the last 6 weeks. Combine that with the role he's got as a slot defender there too. I think we got a strong week coming for him. And the cherry on top is the San Francisco 49ers are one of the best tackle matchups for safeties for IDP scoring as well this week. We'll kick it over to Axton.
On the offensive side, at quarterback, I'm going with Lamar Jackson this week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Against the quarterback position, Jacksonville has allowed the third most yards per game at over 280 yards. They're fourth in touchdowns allowed on a gamely basis or a weekly basis at 1.69. And let's see, in week 13, Joe Flacco, or actually just this last week, Joe Flacco scorched him for 311 yards and 3 touchdowns. And the week before, the Cincinnati quarterback Browning went off for 354 and 2 touchdowns. So we got a good streak going against this defense for quarterbacks. So I think Lamar Jackson is in a good position to beat his 226 passing yards and 1.2 touchdowns per game. This ought to be a good week for Lamar. At running back, I'm going with Bijan Robinson against the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers have been very generous to the running back position throughout the entire year. They're number 1 in touchdowns allowed per game at over 1.3. They allow the fourth most yards per game to the position at over 109 yards per game. And they've allowed all but 2 starting running backs to score a touchdown in each game this year. So, and those 2 weeks were pretty porous running back rooms. So we got pretty good odds for Bijan to punch it in this week and to beat his 61-yard average. At wide receiver, decided to go with DK Metcalf against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles have been bleeding yards and touchdowns to wide receivers this season. They've been nothing like years past. They've just kind of been letting wide receivers go crazy this year. So DK Metcalf against Philadelphia. Against the wide receiver position, they allow the most fantasy points per game to the position and allow over 193 yards, which is tied for second on a week-to-week basis. And they allow 1.7 touchdowns per game to wide receivers any given week. So this ought to be a good opportunity for DK Metcalf to beat his 72-yard, 0.6 touchdown per game average. And to wrap it up here, I decided to go with Pat Freiermuth against the Indianapolis Colts. Excuse me. Nothing particularly tasty about the Colts going up against tight ends. I think they've been pretty middle of the road in fantasy points allowed in general, but where I like Trubisky at the helm in Pittsburgh. He's been known to throw the football quite quite a bit more than Kenny Pickett, and Freiermuth has just kind of been heavily targeted at least the last several weeks at getting a minimum of 7 a game. So I think this is a great week against the Indianapolis Colts, who allow over 56 yards per game to tight ends and over 45 yards per game the last 3 weeks. They even let Cincinnati no-name tight end, who's kind of come on strong, score last week. So I think this ought to be a good opportunity for Freiermuth to beat his 28-yard per game average. So that will do it for our Week 15 picks. We will see you all back next week for Week 16. Good luck, and thanks, everyone.